Hey guys, this is Locke. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the Twin Blade Ranger, Drizzt. I hope I'm saying his name right. I'm going to do a damage calculation to see how much damage he does and how that compares with Usha. I have both of them at level 90, both of them at 5 stars, so I can kind of directly compare their damage. I'm also going to be using the exact same gear. I'm also going to be using the same captain skill as well to make sure that it's as comparable as possible. Now I do have Drizzt at inspiration level 2. Uh, I did 70 summons on the banner, and I was lucky enough to get him. And with 70 summons, I was also I was able to get 2 copies of this uh, to get it up to inspiration level 2. How much extra damage is that going to do here? I mean, let's kind of see. Obviously, it's going to get an extra 16% attack, which is going to be higher than you would have if you have level 0 inspiration. But as for the two effects, for this damage test, it shouldn't really matter because first of all, the first inspiration effect, it reduces the crit damage that he takes, so it doesn't really impact the damage that he will do. For the second effect, when you're dealing damage to an enemy, for every 15% of the target's max HP over that of the hero, the damage will be increasing by up to 12%. So that's not going to apply for this test because I'm targeting the dummy, which will have almost 100% attack, sorry, almost 100% HP, and Drizzt will also have almost 100% HP. So this effect will be negligible. So the difference between my Drizzt and if you have a level 0 Drizzt, or if you're hoping to get a not level 0 but inspiration 0 Drizzt, the difference will be a difference of 16% attack. So kind of keep that in mind and kind of in the back of your head. Um, so I tried to get a crit rate of 100% to minimize the chaotic nature of the damage. I wanted it to be consistent, but these are the stats that I have, and I'm going to be using the exact same equipment on Usha when I do the test with Usha later. So I'm just going to do a 90-second test, and we will see how much damage it does. I wanted to do a test where I removed the panther. Like I was trying to kill the panther by using a skill that kills all summons, but the panther apparently doesn't count as a summon, so that didn't work. The panther does drastically increase his damage output uh, because he gets an extra 40% attack and an extra 40% attack speed with the panther, and then the panther's attack also does 50% basic attack, and then the panther's skill. So the panther does increase his damage output quite a bit. Uh, so you have to kind of think about if you're able to keep the panther alive or not. Uh, yeah, so it'll be tricky. I mean, we'll touch base on the panther a little bit later. Right now, let's just stick to the facts with the numbers and how much damage he can uh, reliably get out of him, and then how does that compare to Usha? All right, so this is really interesting because I did this test just a little bit ago and then I made a mistake, so I'm recording it again. But he did exactly the same amount of damage on both of these fights. So he did 226,000 damage with this gear. Um, and I feel like if I repeat this enough times, he'll probably do very, very close to 226,000 because I mean, he's going to be critting 100% of the time. So there isn't really any other modifier that's, you know, uh, there isn't really any other modifier that's affecting his damage output by too much. The interesting thing about him is that although he's a frost unit, he doesn't benefit so much from frost compared to Usha. For example, like if you look at his skill, if he has frost, if the enemy has frost when he's attacking with his ultimate, you ignore 15% of the enemy's defense. That's it. There's nothing else. Like not nowhere else does he benefit from frost. So you don't really need to have a team with frost on it for him to do well. He'll still do well even without another unit that's using frost. That is not the case with Usha, because with Usha, well, let's read her skill description. So her ultimate will deal twice as much damage when the enemy has frost, and her every second basic attack will also deal double damage when the enemy has frost. So her damage output is going to go like so much higher if you're able to apply frost on the enemy. So we will do two tests with Usha. The first test we'll do, I mean, first of all, I'm going to change the gear to make sure I'm using the same things as I did on Drizzt. He was using this and that. There we go. So these are her stats. I am going to have somebody else accompany here to make sure I'm getting the same, captain skill. And then I'm going to start this. And after this battle, I'm going to do a second battle with Usha and, Felicity as well. But I'm going to have somebody that can apply frost so that we can see what the damage output of Usha will be with somebody applying frost. So, right now we can see we have a minute left, and she's only at 45k. So we can see right away that she's not going to hit anywhere near Drizzt's attack. I think she's probably going to do about 150k damage or so, which I think is significantly lower than the 226,000 that Drizzt was able to put out. After this, I'm going to put somebody else, as I said, with frost on it. And when I do that, I feel like Usha is able to keep, around the same damage as Drizzt, but you need to bring somebody else with frost. And if you're not bringing someone else with frost, then you need to lower Usha's stats. You have to lower her attack, her crit damage, her crit rate, something to find more accuracy. So how much damage did she do? Yeah, she did 154,000. Significantly lower than the 226 that Drizzt did. But now we're going to have Rava accompany her. And Rava has 252, actually has more, plus 18 accuracy. So you should be consistently able to land frost on the enemy, and Usha should be able to take advantage of that. So let's see how Usha does now. And I think she'll probably do similar damage to Drizzt, maybe a little bit more, maybe a bit less, but I think it'll be very, very, very close. So I'll start talking about her anyway. So assuming that she does very similar damage, then you have to kind of think about your team to see if Drizzt is really worth it for you. Like if you have a team where you are using a lot of frost tuners, like you're using Usha and someone else that applies frost, then is it really worth it to get Drizzt, because you're going to have the same output with Usha anyway, because you have somebody else that's consistently applying frost. However, if you can remake your team to not need a frost applier anymore, if you don't need to have somebody that applies frost and has accuracy in them, then you might actually benefit from getting Drizzt, because you can replace Usha with Drizzt, and you can apply whoever's applying frost on your team. You can remove that person and just put a straight up damage dealer, right? Because you don't. I mean, you benefit a little bit from Drizzt, but not so much. And finally, you can use Drizzt as your frost applier as well. Okay, so this is how much damage she did. She did 195k with someone consistently applying frost. Drizzt did 226, so he's still above Usha. Uh, even when Usha has somebody applying frost. But for the sake of argument, let's just say that both Usha and Drizzt is applying similar damage when Usha has a person that's applying frost. So if that is the case, then as I said, is it really worth it? It really depends on your 5-man team. If you have somebody that's applying frost on your team and you want to have that person there, maybe it's not really worth it to bring Drizzt, because Usha is probably going to do very similar damage. If you want Drizzt to be your frost applier, then that works, because Drizzt is able to apply it consistently. If you are using the skill 3 times, it's going to hit 3 times. So that means that you have a 98% chance of landing frost, because 75% times 3, that works out to 98% chance of landing frost. So this is pretty consistent, and it lasts for 10 seconds, and you can use it every 10 seconds. So he can be your consistent frost applier. He actually works really well with this particular artifact, um, this one. The reason is because it boosts your accuracy. It also his ultimate also attacks 6 times. So you have a six you have 6 times to land the debuff. And if it works with this, it also obviously works with the richest remains as well, which means now you have a 6 times 60% chance to land this debuff. And if you're doing that, then you're pumping up his accuracy. So you can build them that way. You can build them as a debuffer, which also deals pretty good damage, and applies frost for your frost team. So you can have all those things in him. But you can also build him as a straight up DPS as well, because he does do significant damage. Now, what about his panther? That is a bit tricky to answer. I think in PvP situations, his panther will probably die pretty fast, so that is going to be a bit tough. He's probably not going to be as good in PvP as in PvE. But I feel that a lot of units that are, frost type or rally type or whatever, they're not really that great. I mean, there are some exceptions, but for most players, I think they will be better in, you know, places where you just want to do straight up damage. In PvP, it's not only straight up damage, because you have to factor in a lot of other things. Like, you have to get your skills off as fast as possible, and you have to put a lot of skill haste, and then you need to put stunners. If you stun the enemy unit, they're not gaining ultimate gauge, so your units will probably use their ultimate before them. And there's a lot of other things to consider than only damage for PvP. But for PvE, depending on what it is, like for example Vortex, you really want to maximize your damage output. So units like the straight up frost units, rally units, what else? The wild units. Those will all do a lot of damage, and yeah, you could benefit from other debuffs and healing and stuff, but not as much. Like, there are compositions that could work with just just rally units, for example. Like, for example, in my team right now for Vortex, I use 3 units with just rally, and it works really well. I use this guy, Alto, I think, and then I use a healer and a tank, and that works really well. Like, I don't need to, I'm having 3 units with rally, but bringing this team in PvP is tough, because my units can all easily get stunned, and then I'm not even able to cast an ultimate before my whole team dies. But for PvE it works, and I feel like he would work really well in PvE situations. It's also going to be probably easier to keep his panther alive in PvE situations, because you're probably bringing more healers and more shielders to keep your whole team alive. Vortex is going to do a lot of damage, so you want to bring those kind of healing and shielding anyway. So your panther will benefit from that, because that panther will stick around. For PvP, I don't really think he's going to do really well for the reasons I just talked about, and it's only the first day, so I have not tried him out well in PvP. I mean, I'll test him out, but I don't expect him to do too well. But just from reading his skill set and looking at how he's connected with the panther, I don't think he will be doing too well in PvP. In PvE, as I mentioned, I mean, his damage output is higher than Usha, and he's able to work without bringing a frost unit. So if that's worth it for you, I mean, I think you should go for it. For me personally, I I am going for him, and one of the reasons for that is because although I have quite a few legendary units, it's really hard to get the legendaries that are good, to get multiple inspirations of them, because that's just really really hard. Obviously, right? You have to pull a specific legendary multiple times to get their inspiration level, and I mean I do have some legendary artifacts, so I have gotten copies of 6 legendary units, but those are sucky ones that I didn't really care about. So with Drizzt, um, the way this is set up, the way if you pull on this enough times, you can easily get his inspiration level up. I mean, I only have 3K left now, so I might be able to get him to +3 depending on how much of the Hunter's Blade I can get from the event. But I'm probably not going to be getting to Inspiration 5. But I still think that being having a unit that does pretty good damage at Inspiration 3, I think is worth it for me where I am at, because what am I focusing on? I want to, like I want to hit the next level of vortex that I can. I am on level 4, but I mean I want to, I want to be on the leaderboard, right? So for people like that already have a pretty good team and that you're just trying to make it to the next level, you want to get on the leaderboards, you want to score higher on whatever events that are going on. I think Drizzt makes sense because for the amount of pulls that you will do, you can max them easier than you can max any other unit. I mean, okay, if you have an unlimited amount of money, like if you have, say, 10,000 to blow on this game, yeah, you can probably get anyone you want at Inspiration 5. That's like, I'm not going to talk about that case because that's probably going to be a very, very few amount of people that can do that. But for me myself, I actually, like, I haven't summoned in a long time. Like, I didn't summon on this one, I didn't summon on the banner, which counted towards this event. What is it? Yeah, this. No, not this one. This. Where did it go? Oh, here, this one. So I mean, I ended up not getting this guy because I didn't pull on the banner because I just saved my summons. I saved it for Drizzt because I wanted to have a unit that I can use that will have high inspiration, and it works for me. So it works for me to go with this. And at inspiration level 3, his stats does get a major boost because uh, he will have an extra 10% crit rate and extra 20% crit damage. So obviously he's going to definitely do a lot more damage than Usha at that point. So that's why I wanted to do the test right now. Um, so yeah, I mean, there are cases where he works, there are cases where he doesn't work. I hope I've kind of given you enough thoughts about him to so that you can kind of see if it would work for you or if it would not work for you. Um, if we had a way to bring the Panther back, if once the Panther dies, I think that would just set him up, like, really well. Because then, right now a lot of his damage potential is tied to that Panther. So keeping the Panther alive is a bit of a priority, I think. Um, but if the Panther dies, he can still function well, depending on your team setup. He can still function well as a Frost applier, and his damage is still pretty good. I mean, he will do 660% damage with his ultimate, and it also increases by 1% for every HP lost by the target, up to 30%. So while I was fighting this, you know, the dummy had close to 100% HP. But if I'm fighting other units, different bosses, and as their health goes down, he will actually be doing more damage. So I didn't count for that in this test because, I mean, I couldn't really. And I didn't want to, use one set of equipment on him and then a different set of equipment on Usha and then do the Vortex, because I think that's a bit meaningless because unless you have units that have the exact same gear, the test doesn't really work. So the only way I can really do this test is here, with the training dummy. I didn't do an AoE test, but I think most of the boss situations are a single target anyway, so I don't want to spend another, what is it, like 5 minutes going through the 3 different scenarios and talking about it. But I hope this has given you an idea. Like, just straight up damage, he does outperform Usha because he does more damage. If Usha has another unit that is applying frost consistently, I think they both do similar damage. Although he did eke out a little bit more, but he also has 60% higher attack. So with that in mind, I think he will probably do similar damage to Usha if Usha has a different frost applier. But for one slot, you only need him, and you can have any other 4 units on the team. I think he will do you know like, I think he does his job for just taking one slot. So that's my review on him. It's not a ringing endorsement because it wouldn't really work for every team. As I mentioned, if you have Usha and somebody else on your team applying frost, and if he's going to be replacing Usha on the team, you don't have any other slot, you might not really see a significant amount of damage increase. I actually did a test on this dummy, and I brought somebody else that consistently applied frost, and Drizzt's attack didn't go up by, like, he didn't do so much more extra damage. He did about the same. So he doesn't really benefit so much from having another person applying frost, but Usha does. So anyway, I feel like I'm repeating myself now, so I'm going to, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, guys, and I hope you guys have a great day. If you have other questions, or if you guys think that I missed something and I should have covered it but I didn't, please let me know. I'm definitely open to criticism. So leave your comments and thoughts on him and what you guys think. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Take care.